Okay, so just a reminder where we are. We're at the end of 2022. Today is our first members meeting after our break. There will be a NACS board meeting on the 20th of November. And then on the 18th of December, we will have another members meeting pending finding a speaker and or other relevant things to talk about. So that takes us through 2022. I encourage you all to look at the packet that I sent out because this is in there. I will just highlight a few things. We will have a members meeting again on the 19th of February, highlighted there in yellow. At the moment, in celebration of our 20th anniversary of Clivias shows in Southern California, we are planning on having our usual Huntington Clivias show and sale the second weekend in March 11th and 12th.
Behind my camera.
And then also on the next weekend, the third weekend in March, the 18th and 19th, we're planning on having a Clivias show and sale at the Sherman Library and Gardens in Corona del Mar, which is where we held our show a couple of years ago when we could not be at the Huntington. Other than that, probably the last thing I'll mention is tentatively, we're scheduled to have our virtual Clivias show in our annual meeting the very last weekend in April because we need to work around Easter, okay? So again, these will be published in the newsletter. It was also in the presentation that I sent out. So with that, Kevin, I'm going to turn it over to you and we're going to start your presentation, okay?
All righty.
As soon as I find you. Okay, Kevin, I am making you the host right now. It is all yours, my friend.
Okay. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to give you an overview of how I got started growing Clivia back in around 1990, 92 is when I first really became interested in getting a greenhouse and proceeding with growing different types of plants. And what I'm going to talk about is how I got the greenhouse constructed, what I have inside of it to make it operate in zone 5, which is we can get down below 0, but probably almost maybe every other year here. So it's you definitely need some reliable heaters and redundancy. And I'm going to go over the construction, temperature controls, water quality, shading, and soil mixes. And you're welcome to ask any questions that you want to as I go on here. But I got started with Clivia with Amera Flora came to Columbus. It was a big international floral show. They had numerous greenhouses set up there. And I just became enthralled with just looking at them and just saying, boy, it'd be great to have your own little ecosystem where you could play around with different things. And so that's how I got started in it. And basically, this is the back of the greenhouse right here. It's 25 by 50. I've got, it's aluminum extruded structure raftering. I've got 2 heaters. You almost have to have 2 of everything for redundancy. If you're getting a situation where you get an ice storm here or, some other type of malfunction, you always have to have a backup. And they're on 2 separate circuits. That way, if one circuit doesn't run properly, the other one will. So in the back of the center there, you can see those are the 2 Modine heaters. They're propane operated. And then the 2 exhaust fans are to the left and to the right of each one of those heaters. And those are the main exhaust fans that come on only in the middle of summer on the hottest days. I usually don't try not to let it get too much hotter than 85, but then of course, when it gets in the 90s, it'll keep it about maybe a degree or 2 warmer in the greenhouse than it is outside. So it's pretty efficient. And so when I started, I didn't realize how important what water quality was. We live out in the country, so I have well water. And it was really bad water. So I had to, I started seeing all kinds of problems with salts in the pots and so forth. So I had to set up a gutter system and collect rainwater. Presently, I've used, I have 3 300-gallon main tanks where the water comes in from a gutter system outside. And then the tank to the left is a smaller 35-gallon tank, which I mix my fertilizer in. And I use 5 of those when I go to water the whole greenhouse. So it's quite time consuming. And let me tell you, if you got city water, you're blessed. Here's a picture of just a gutter running down one side. I originally put two of them up, one on each side, but I found out one of them's plenty. It's incredible how much water you can get with a ½ inch to an inch of rain will, fill up 600 gallons easily. And the propane tank is in the back. This is a new addition I put on the front, which I use for packaging and carnivorous plants, and just in the cooler weather, it helps me, gives me an area to transplant and so forth. I bought some cheap, really nice windows on Marketplace on Facebook. I got all 8 windows for the price of one if I was to buy it new. So if you're ever looking for anything used or brand new, these were brand new, anything that's people maybe ordered extra of, check out Marketplace. You can get all kinds of good deals on there. Presently, the soil mix I use now is ProMix 55 by Premier. It's roughly 40% composted pine bark and 40% peat moss, and I think around 20% perlite. We're using a mix called Metro Mix 560 that Mike Riska recommended. I really liked it, but it seems like every 3 or 4 years, these companies change their items and they're kind of hard to get a hold of. The only difference with that mix was it had a little bit of ground up coconut core in it, which I like because it kind of kept it a little more airy and it didn't compact quite as much as this. So I just add a little extra perlite to this, not too much though, just I don't know, maybe 10%, something like that. It's a good mix though. It's a lot better than trying to mix your own all the time. Okay. Well, when I first started growing plants in the greenhouse, I grew a lot of succulents and pachypodiums and cycads. And it got to a point where it was a combination of being a little bored with all those. And then the price of heating it in the wintertime kept going up and up as I started. And then I happened to see Clivia on a park seed catalog of all things. And I ordered some seed and I started researching them and found out, that they're really interesting to work with because of the genetics in it. And you can, it's a nice little surprise in the springtime when your new crosses start to open. And I just found that really interesting. This here, when I first started, I got a lot of seeds from Japan and eBay, and most back in the early 90s. And a lot of this material was basically all orange and yellow, as you guys know. And this here is an example of, I bought these seeds from Yang. They're called White Butterfly times Angel City. They're 2 well-known compact blushes, really nice plants. I got 100% yellow pink blush with compact, broad, recurving leaves. They're more of a Daruma type though, but they worked out pretty good. They're expensive seeds at the time there. I was lucky to get them, but this is an example of what they look like. And as I went along, I started crossing those and finding out that green group 2s were really compatible with them, and green, high rose, and it's actually even somewhat dominant. I haven't flowered enough to say for sure, but had probably more blush outcomes than I have oranges or yellows when utilizing these. And as I went along, and I kept getting more and more seeds, I wanted to, I got to thinking, let's put different colors on a lot of these different variegated types. So it was probably a 16-year process to 17-year to get, I put greens, yellows, peaches, multi-petals on striated, variegated. This here is a Light of Buddha cream. And this came from, I crossed it with a group 1 yellow at the time. When I first started, it seems like all your yellows were group 1. They're hard to get to group 2. I kind of like, both of them have their own attributes, but group 2 seems to be a little more diverse in their outcomes. Here's another example of a yellow Light of Buddha. Kind of a long leaf thing, but really, really beautiful flowers. But it came about when I pollinated, I put yellow, group 1 yellow on an orange Light of Buddha. Then of course, the next flowering was was orange. And then I had to cross it one more time and it came out yellow, or green stem bases. And I kept all the green stem bases and then I threw those away, threw the pigmented ones away. And what's interesting about the light of Buddha, when you cross with different colors, in most cases, they seem to be a little bit lighter, like the actual flower stem carries up some of that lack of chlorophyll, which makes the flowers a little bit lighter. And when I first imported some seeds from Japan, I bought thousands of seeds, and I would say maybe 10% of them were even back in the early 90s, turned out different than just a regular orange or yellow. So it was slow going to begin with. And this was one of the good crosses that I got was Helleborus, which is a F2 Coalescence hybrid. And it was crossed with TKO yellow green throat. And every single flower that I've crossed with those following with the Coalescence hybrids turned out to be really good keepers. And this was the first, I got 3 of them that flowered from that original cross. And this is one of my main breeder plants. It's group 2 since it has TKO yellow green to it in it. So it makes it compatible with a lot of different types of flowers. And other flowers I'm working on is multi-tepal. And of course, Japan had the best multi-petals back when they started. And I was fortunate to buy some of their seeds, and I went after some of the expensive ones to begin with a long time ago. And they worked out pretty good. I believe I think this is Kano Mai right here, which is a well-known, let's see, well, here's a better picture of it right here. This plant is just fantastic because it flowers usually with 2 scapes, and it flowers every year, kind of a rich orange red in color. And one thing that people don't talk about when talk about Clivia a lot is not only is the flowers and the leaves have to look good, but it should flower every year. The really good ones, flower every year, twice, and sometimes even more a year. And this is definitely one of them. It's got the real good vigor, beautiful flowers, and it's amazing plant. Kayuno Mai, it's called. Here's an outcome that I made from crossing Kayuno Mai with some other multi-petals. It's more of a bronzeous color. And here's one of the very rare true reds that I have. I think I have 3 of them in my home collection, and I'm waiting for a lot of them to bloom. And this is 100% multi-tepal. I was pretty happy when this one bloomed. It has a little yellow throat on it I like the way the stamens contrast from the deep red. And this is the main breeder plant here too. Here's some seeds that I imported from Shige called Cuts Like a Knife. And it has the mid-rib stripe down the middle of the tepals, which is an interesting characteristic at the time, especially. And he had another one like that too, that he crossed it with. This is Cuts Like a Knife, and the other one was Jetstream, I believe. So when I flowered these crosses, one of them came out with some, decent striping on it, and then I crossed it again with in between the siblings, and this is what I ended up getting right here. This is somewhat of a stripe plant. It's not as contrasting as I'd like it, but you keep working with it, and hopefully you come up with some better contrast. This previous picture was Kabuki from Japan. It has this is a very old, from 1992. I think I bought it. It was a seed that they irradiated in a hospital or something, and it came out. It came out interesting. It has stripes on it. I've been breeding with it a little bit. And I'm just now starting to see some of the results from it, and a couple of them have been kind of interesting so far. They some of the flower edges are scalped, and then one of them was had like bearding, which is kind of a rough texture on the insides of the throats, which is weird. And I went ahead and self that one to try to produce that trait. We'll see what happens. And this here is an interspecific that I crossed with, I believe it was Warm Heart times, let's see, another interspecific that I had. It might have been, I can't think of the name of it right now, but it came out interesting that was kind of multicolored as far as the one flower out having an orange throat and the other one having a yellow, and it changes a little bit. It's kind of a versicolor. We're finding out, of course, that we know now that interspecifics really produce a lot of interesting outcomes. Here's Warm Heart, one of Rudolph Lauder's originals. Really beautiful, vigorous plant, flowers twice a year minimum, and it puts out a lot of offsets. So it's a very good plant all the way around if you can ever get it. If you want to see flowers on it, you know, at least definitely once a year, sometimes twice a year. This is one to look for. That's a good point on a lot of this stuff. I would say I probably flower out of all my plants, maybe 25%, 30%. And there's a lot of them out there that haven't flowered in over 10 years. So some other seeds that I got from Shige years ago was from Vico Yellow Heritage, which is group 1 yellow. It's a multi-petal ghost times multi-petal yellow. I bought 4 seeds, and 3 of them germinated, and all 3 of them turned out to be multi-petal and ghost. I couldn't believe it. That kind of hit the jackpot on those. And I've been using this as a primary breeding plant also, putting Kano Mai and some other super multi-petals on this. I think it would be awesome to see something like this with, this is 100% 10 to 12 petal, and or 8 to 12 petal. And it, I think it'd be awesome to, you know, just increase the number of tepals on it with that ghosting. One thing about ghosts too, they can fluctuate a little bit year to year. Some do and some don't. So if you have something with just a slight bit of ghosting on it, and you're not sure whether to keep it or you don't like it, give it another year. This particular one had 2 scapes on it when it's on its 3rd flowering. The one flowered inside the greenhouse and it came out like this. The other one, when I brought it inside the house to look at it every day, the next scape that came up wasn't quite as ghosted. So I think temperature and light has something to do with, you know, making it a little bit better too. Because after I brought it in, it wasn't as pronounced as this first one. This here is a multi-petal called Girl from Mitsuhashi. And it's a beauty. It has a long scape on it that comes up, rises nice and tall in the foliage. And these poor plants, I've been breeding so much with them. I'm gonna give them a rest this year, and hopefully they'll really show their true grandeur when you even a bigger, more fuller umbel. This particular plant here was a new one this year. It looks, this is kind of an older picture, kind of aged a little bit, but it was an interesting ghost that appeared. And of course, I didn't have the label on it, so like I figure it seems like a lot of the good ones you like, you don't have a label on it. But as I went along, like I was saying earlier with Light of Buddha, I wanted to get different colors on different variegations. And striated tiger, Light of Buddha, and I put green, or I put almost every color with multi-petal on them. And again, it takes that, you know, that those three crossings minimal to have a decent outcome. And I just kept the unpigmented ones with the group 2s, and this here was my first, or actually my 3rd flowering green variegated. The first 2, it seemed like that darn yellow, even though I hit it twice with green and the bases run pigmented, that yellow still wanted to come through on them. This one here was a little more green, a little more greener in person than it looks here. But, and like I said, a lot of your Darumas are compatible with this. And it seems like on the first crosses, you'll get a beautiful Daruma blush with a little bit of green in the throat, which adds for more interest. So here's just an interesting plant that I'm breeding with now too. It's from Clivia Mart, the cheesecake series. It has really recurved flowers and a nice tight umbel. And it's another one I got to leave alone. But what's interesting about this was I have like 2 or 3 plants. In most cases, in my experience anyway, everybody's is different. It seems like as time goes by, the florets usually darken with color. Now, this one goes the other way. It gets lighter and lighter as it ages, which is unusual. But when it first started, it was it had, the orange, and I go, oh, it'll probably be an orange. Then all of a sudden, the white and cream and yellow start coming through and diluting into the orange. And it's done that all 3 years that it's flowered. Interesting. Here's a real good plant. This is from Sean Chubb. I imported it from him, and it's called Love Child, and it's a good plant in that it flowered. I've had this flower 4 times in 1 year for me, and it's one of the top versicolors in bright color, especially in California. You should be able to get that outside to get really brick red and with the yellow and cream throat. It's a beautiful plant, and its genetics carry over really well. So it's one of their top breeders. This one and Star Green is a really good breeder also. You can cross Star Green with just an ordinary orange, and that green will come out dominant. I mean, it won't be all green, it'll be orange and green. Here's an example of Star Green cross with Gunston Bronze. It's kind of a patchwork of different colored greens and bronzes in there, and it's unusual. I was real happy to see that coming. The Star Green cross seed were hard to get years and years ago, and I happened to look at Lisa Fox from Australia, and she had some Star Green seed, just a few left, and I went ahead and grabbed them all and had some pretty good luck with those. Now I'm breeding the heck out of that too. This here's a tiger. Thanks to Marilyn Paskert for years ago. She was generous enough to give me some of her tiger pollen. And when I first 2 or 3 years when I crossed it, I probably got maybe 20%, 25% tiger, and then maybe 20 to 15% really good tiger out of it. And that was from the pollen. And this particular one here bloomed last year. It had almost like a chimera effect where half the flower had yellow with orange blotches on it. And I had 2 of the flowers that were like that on it. So I just went ahead and selfed it to see if it'll carry over. It'll be interesting to see if it carries over that trait the next blooming. These can vary a little bit. I'm not sure what tiger is, but some of the blooms on tiger can have these spots every year, different types of looks to them. It'd be interesting to really find out what causes the tiger. They do seem to prefer a little bit cooler weather, and probably because the cooler weather just makes for a stronger plant, but they're a little bit slower in general than regular Clivia. Here's an example of some seedlings that I've been breeding with on these different variegated tigers, multi-petals and greens. And basically when they get to this stage is when I pot them up. I like to get them out of there real quick. And when I pot them up, even if they have only a half-inch root, I stick them in the pots with, I'll just stick a pencil in there and give it a hole and just drop it in there. And this way it seems like they can get started in that bigger pot, and I don't have to have all these twisted roots and so forth. But it was a pretty high outcome. And a lot of these I've been crossing with blush, compact blush. I have 3 blushes that are really compact. One of them has raised veins on it, and I've been trying to work towards that direction to get more compact material, like most people. And here's just a picture of the greenhouse during the flowering season. Here in Ohio in Zone 5, for me, it seems like the first flowers start to appear at the end of February. The main flowering is through probably the last 3 weeks in March. And then there's through the middle of end of April, you still get quite a bit. And I try to utilize every bit of space I got, because you get growing out of there. I have a couple of trays hanging in there that I just hung up on strings just to try to utilize and make more space. And here's another picture at the end, just a collage of different colors and contrast to give an idea. All right, is there any questions? That's probably about it. I mean, I can go on forever. But I think tigers, colors, and some of these, as the tigers get bigger, they get really striking. I mean, they really do. Some of them they're getting larger. It just gets more dramatic, it seems like, but they are slow. So,
Kevin, I noticed in your last photo, you answered, I think, a question I had about your greenhouse itself and whether what you were doing for air circulation, whether you had half fans, horizontal airflow fans in the greenhouse to keep the air moving. I think I saw one in your last photo there.
okay, well, I've got a fan. I got a fan jet tube in the middle of it, runs down the top of the greenhouse.
Yep.
Which has the holes, the classic holes. I really like that. That runs 24/7, keep the air circulating. I like it because it really reaches the corners and the outside perimeter of the greenhouse. And I also have a vent, a ridge vent in the top. Like if I'm not home or something, or I go on vacation, I can open that up in case there's a power failure.
It's interesting because my original first big greenhouse, back in the 90s, we had a huge ice storm here in New England, and we were out west, and it went down, complete collapse, and I had to replace the whole thing. And it had the same setup with the double heaters and double exhaust vents and the heat tube down the center. But when I replaced it, rebuilt it with a new one, I ended up putting in a roof vent and roll-up sides, and didn't put any exhaust fans in at all, never needed them. And of course, that greenhouse was used for retail. So the other big advantage for me was it was quiet. Customers would come in and they wouldn't be interrupted by the huge noise of the exhaust fans going. So, and
Yeah.
I've never had to have an exhaust fan, and dealt with the temperature gradient very, very nicely.
Nice. What kind of shade cloth did you have?
I don't remember the percentage.
It probably wasn't Clivia though, right? Were you growing?
It was a mixed, we had a mixed bag in there. It was probably about 50% shade cloth, 40, 50% at that time.
Okay.
I wasn't growing Clivias at that point. I had a few, but that was not my focus at that time. But it was a nice addition to be able to walk in and not have all the
It's nice to have the
as well as
sidewalls
the
up.
energy savings. As well as the energy savings.
Have you encountered any storms though? See, we have storms that come through. And if I had open sidewalls, I'd be picking them up on the ground here. It's tough. It's rough here.
Yeah, obviously
Yeah.
only in the summertime, but they roll up, so you roll them up, roll them down. You only roll them
Yeah.
up. You really need it in very, very hot days.
Okay, nice.
Kevin, there's like 3 remarks or questions in the chat. One is, what is the beautiful cream with the green? And then the other question is, what is the lowest temperature you recorded in your greenhouse? And then remark that he's in Arkansas and house dipped to 30 degrees last winter.
Well, high 30s.
In the greenhouse?
Yeah,
That won't hurt nothing. They can take that pretty easy.
yeah.
I know it probably sounds really cold to the Californians.
I didn't take it very easy, let me tell you.
Well, yeah, was there a problem? I mean, that caused that? That would make you nervous if you.
No, it was a bit before the greenhouse actually got up that they
okay.
they had to endure
Okay, so
under a tarp and stuff, but
So what
I'm sorry.
what temperature do you control to in the wintertime, Kevin?
I don't really have a thermostat. I go out and turn a gas heater on. And it's
Kevin.
Yeah, I'll usually drop it down. Right now, I keep, as we're still getting good sunshine and good growth, I'll keep it minimum of about 58 in there. Keep things going, and I go by the weather. But usually by the end of this month, I'll have it down to 54, and then the beginning of let's see, December, I'll turn it down to 48 in there. Yeah, I usually set the thermostat at 48. And I'm sure around the perimeter of it, it gets probably around 40.
Kevin,
Yes,
here, thank you. Your presentation was fabulous and your plants are fabulous. I just wanted to say, we here in Northern California, we do get down to the low 30s. And so it's not all wonderful, but you know what? The cold temperatures, that's why your tigers are so beautiful, because tigers need, it's like Accabono, they need that winter chill to develop their trait. And I wanted to ask you about tigers. You're saying they grow slowly. I haven't noticed that in general. But you're growing a lot of tigers that are variegated.
they're combined, exactly. Yeah,
Yes, and variegated is what grows slow. Just tigers, straight up green tigers, grow normally,
that's
I
a
think.
very true statement. Yep, I should have mentioned that. Yeah, you're right. The green ones do grow just in most cases pretty good. But yeah, when you put them on the striated and the light of Buddha, it does slow them down. Good point.
Yeah, okay.
Kevin,
It's amazing though, the outcomes you can get from that pollen that you sent. I mean, that was great.
You know, it was a green throat tiger, and yeah, I'm glad you used it to such advantage. Congratulations.
Thanks.
You have a great breeding touch.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Kevin, when you're raising the tiger seedlings, when do they start showing that character?
Oh, they can be all a little bit different. You got to give them a little bit of time, but I would say in general, your best ones show pretty good tiger on the get-go, but you can also have some that start off with 1 or 2 stripes. I would say by the 3rd year, you should be able to get a good idea, 3rd or 4th year, what it's going to be. But, don't count them out the first 2 years. But I would say just in general, the better ones do start off pretty strong. But they can go from nothing and then all of a sudden the next leaf come out and have quite a bit on it. So,
Okay.
yeah. Now, Wanda asked about the cream. Which plant were you talking about, Wanda?
Somebody else asked. I was reading.
It's the one like right there in the front there on your last picture there. That's so beautiful.
Oh, the whitish cream one?
Yeah, with in the left
That's a
corner.
light of Buddha that I crossed group 1 yellow with. And it, since it has that light of Buddha, it carries up that paleness that I was talking about earlier that really made it a white cream. It's interesting how that light of Buddha scape really transfers that over even to the flower color. Not in all cases, but in a lot of them it does.
It's just beautiful. What
Thanks.
really nice presentation. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, they're fun. They never get, I think we're right at the pinnacle now of all the genetics. And it just seems to be, they're all coming together now and it's so much more enjoyable because the percentage of outcomes are just getting, better and better all the time. You see the beautiful South Africans and the Australian flowers and it's just the more genes you get in it, I think the more, chance for some type of crazy outcome.
Okay, any more questions for Kevin? Go ahead.
Oh, yes. Which part of Ohio are you in?
I'm right outside of Columbus, Ohio in the center. And
Awesome.
anybody's welcome to come out and visit. Like I mentioned, the flowering time is usually from 1st of March till the end of April.
Well, I was born in Columbus, so if my brother still lives there, so if I ever get out there again, if the things settle down, I will definitely come visit you. That sounds lovely. Thank you.
Okay, yep. It's always fun. You don't get too many Clivia enthusiasts out here.
Yeah.
It's worth the trip. It's a beautiful, he's got a beautiful setup. So if you guys get a chance to go out there, I highly recommend it.
Pine Criska, I've been there
Thanks.
too. It's great.
Thanks, guys.
Great job, Kevin.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I'll turn it back over to Malcolm. Okay,
Good
Malcolm.
All
job.
right, so
Thanks, Kevin.
Kevin, make me the host again, and then I will stop recording.
All
And
right.
it's not the picture me, it's the other me. Okay.
Let me find you here. We got a lot more names to sift through here. Hold on a minute.
Okay, I think you've made me the host. Okay, so let's stop recording.
No.